Welcome to the Recovery Lab podcast. My name is Daniel Anderson.
And I'm Brynn Knox.
Thank you so much, Brynn. We are the Recovery Lab today. Drew is taking some family time and taking his kids to do some hiking. So best of luck to that and that experience. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we are the Recovery Lab. We are here to normalize recovery. We like talking with folks who are in and around recovery, and our main number one goal is to perhaps help one person not make one of the poor life decisions we made in our active addiction. So today we have the wonderful, incredible Ruth Ann Rigby, who, if you don't know her, you should know her, because she is absolutely, literally the most incredible person in the world. She's asked me to make this announcement. We have the National Prescription Drug Take Back Day. It's Saturday, April 22nd of this year. It will be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can find a drop-off site near your area by visiting www.dea.gov/takebackday. You can also request a Narcan kit at no cost to you by contacting one of the following organizations: Stand Up Mississippi Against the Opioid Crisis, and that's www.standupms.org/hashtag, or MakeMississippiODFree.org, and that is at www.odfree.org/get naloxone /. And you can check these people out. Also put these on the website so you can check out this and reach out to these folks if you need some of those things. So, all right, without further ado, today we have Alex Christian Moore, who is a life coach. He is in sobriety. He's in recovery. He is works how many jobs? 14 jobs?
Like it feels like
14 jobs. Yeah.
I think it's 4 right now.
he helps people. He works with folks in and around sobriety. He's also a professional, has his own business. He's a life coach. He's just doing big things, and we're really, really grateful for you for joining us today. So what we'd like to do is take some time, maybe the first half of the program, if we want to go a little bit longer than that, whatever you feel led to do. Let's take some time and talk to you about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So without further ado, Alex Christian Moore, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I usually like to have people on my podcast, so it's nice to be on somebody else's, so thanks for having me here, for real. So the name's Alex Christian Moore. 30 years old. Yeah, I had to think about that for a second.
Nice.
I was born in Kosciuszko, Mississippi.
Okay.
Shout out Oprah Winfrey. And, I grew up a preacher's kid. I was the grandchild of a preacher's kid, actually, first. My grandfather who I'm named after, Alex Moore. He turned a gas station into a church.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, really put his whole heart into it. And then when he passed away when I was 5, my dad, I don't know if he was called or, he just felt like making his dad proud, but he stepped up and took over the church. So that's how I grew up in Kosciuszko.
Were you close with your granddad?
I was on his hip a lot. And out of the OG cousins and the grandchildren, I was the youngest out of all my other, the family photos you have in your home.
Sure.
Those original grandkids have those photos. I was the last one to make it into the original. So I was the baby, so it was just I was the only baby in the family. So I got passed around like an offering plate. Yeah. So I'd say we were close.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't remember much of him, unfortunately, just being so young.
Sure.
But my nanny, who's still alive, his wife, it's literally she's it's like God, then my nanny in my world. I'm just a nanny's boy. She tells me often that I remind her the most of, Papa, my Papa Alex. So that's kind of cool because I know the lives he touched. In Kosciuszko, like they said, his funeral was people couldn't even get into
Really?
the place, and there were people who drove from like states away just to come be there for
That's
him.
awesome.
And that's like the impact I grew up thinking like I want to have on the world.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of turned me in, to the direction that I'm at now.
Yeah.
But before we got there,
Yeah, before.
because we can't forget about what it was like. So yeah, grew up Kosciuszko. I think I was around 13 and all through school. I mean, I homeschooled sometimes. Like I remember, I think it was 4th grade. There was a Dixie Chicks poster that said "Got Milk" in the cafeteria, and I came home and told my dad and mom about it, and they pulled me out of school, and I homeschooled the next year.
Wow.
So we homeschooled. We did martial arts. My dad was my instructor, so I have a red belt in Tang Sudo, which is just a weird
Sweet.
little thing. But I used to travel all around the United States. I actually competed with Taylor Lautner.
Oh,
Really?
wow.
Yes, before he got famous on Shark Boy and Lava Girl. We were 11 the last time I saw him.
Wow.
Did you beat him up?
No, he beat me. And thank God it wasn't fighting, because it would feel even worse to say that Taylor Lautner beat me up in fight. It was weapons. And I did get beat up by him in weapons. But so we did a lot as a family. We traveled a lot. We were the missionaries. We traveled with churches, traveled with karate. And we did that for a long time. But then I think I was 13 years old, my dad decided to let the church go, like sell the church for whatever reason. And we moved to Panama City Beach, Florida, to sit under another preacher. And that's where the good old cult comes in. I don't want to call it a cult. I'm very gracious with my words. I don't like sometimes to talk about my true thoughts. Like looking back, it was a little cultish. And I need to stop putting the sugar on top of things.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little cultish. And I went from like us being the preacher's family and us doing things the way we did. We watched TV, Yeah, my sisters wore dresses, but like they didn't have to be in a dress every day. To go into this property where like boys and girls couldn't even touch while playing tag. We had to use a stick to play tag. Yeah. I would love to say that's the reason why I'm gay, but I definitely don't think it's that simple. But so we were there on the property, and we did that for maybe 2 to 3 years. And then my family, actually, we all got out of church for the first time in my life. I mean, it was kind of shocking.
So the place you were living was like a compound,
It was a compound.
and it was like a religious compound. What?
Religious, Southern Fundamental Independent Baptist.
Okay.
They also ran a boys' home. And to be honest with you, looking back, was I mistreated? No. Was it creepy? Yeah, looking
Okay.
back. But I think just like in many of our stories, we all had great intentions with what we wanted, but the delivery just sometimes didn't always match
Sure.
the motives. So I'm not going to say too much about it. It was just very weird. And I'm
Sure.
so glad that I'm not 17 growing up in Panama City Beach on a compound with other people anymore.
And so your parents just all of a sudden were done with it.
They were done with it. I think at that point, my parents had already, this is my stepmom that raised me, and my father. That's the household I grew up in, because my mother is one of us.
Okay.
And she lost me when I think I was 2 years old.
Mm.
And my dad took me, and then, my other brother got adopted. I guess I'm missing out a little. Well, I'm leaving a lot out because
No, you're fine. You're fine.
yeah. So like my other little brother, same mom, different dad.
Mm-hmm.
He got adopted by my dad's sister, who recently just passed away, kind of to this addiction as well.
My goodness.
But anyways, so my brother grew up in my cousin's household over
Okay.
there, and then I grew up with my stepmom and my dad and my 2 sisters.
Okay.
My older sister is one of us as well.
Okay.
So is my father, and so is my mother. Now,
You got it real.
oh yeah, I think I had it honest.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, growing up, I was just like a normal kid. I was just very like out of sight, out of mind, I believe. I mean, I never felt comfortable in my skin. I always struggled with just feeling like I wasn't, manly enough for my dad, or I wasn't feminine enough for my mom's love. It was just like literally, I felt like I was always trying to be something that I wasn't to get something from somebody.
Kind of like a chameleon type of thing.
Very much so a chameleon, which has taken over my life at different moments in and out of sobriety. But yeah, so that growing up, I didn't really realize the dysfunction or the toxicness or just like the way we lived wasn't right. Even though we were a preacher's family behind the scenes, I mean, all of us were struggling.
Right.
I mean, I don't, and it was just like pain was being passed like a ping pong ball in between all of us. Like dad does this just to mom, and then mom takes it out on me, and then I take it out on my little sister, and then my older sister's running away from the house, trying to be rebellious. And I mean, it was just constant dysfunction.
It sounds like a lot of chaos, which is, I mean, it's super common.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no such thing as a non-chaotic family. Oh, well, maybe there is, but.
No, there's not. The more you talk, I have so many questions, but I don't want to interrupt you. So I'm about to get my notebook out. I'm going to start writing them down for like at the end.
Okay, I can't wait. So where are we? So that's a little backtrack. Let's pull it back. So
were you close with your dad and your stepmom at all, or was there like a weirdness to that, or a difficult thing to that, or what was that like?
That was man. I always go to give you a good answer. That's just my go-to. I've had to really learn how to find the good to say and everything. Because sometimes
we just want the authentic.
I'm working on it because I'm like I go to say something or go to share something, and I'm like, just be real.
Yeah, if you don't say something, that one thing that you don't say could be the one thing that someone needed to hear.
Correct.
That could have been a turning point for them.
Yeah.
So don't hold back.
Thanks.
And be honest.
All right. So no, I was not close to my father or my stepmother or my biological mother. I never really felt close to anybody. I mean, I had seasons and periods where, the child in me wanted, connection, and I wanted stability, and I wanted somebody to say that you're enough, or, I would get the I'm proud of you because my dad was my coach in every sport, and he was very much so like, if you're not first, you're last. Ricky Bobby, and I just bought into that. So everything I did, I just became just obsessed with being the best at what I did, which I mistake like me doing sports with my dad and him being my coach as me and him being close growing up. I really thought that was how we bonded. But I can look back and, man, I didn't want to play baseball.
You had to perform in order to experience love in your head.
In my head. And that might not be their truth, but that felt like my truth.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing. And it's very common for me and for alcoholics of all kinds and addicts of all kinds. We have to, I felt like I had to perform in order to be loved. And I had to, I was in photography a great deal as a young kid. That was my identity, period. I was a photo yearbook editor and newspaper editor of the high school newspaper. And I was just, that was my complete identity. And I didn't feel loved unless I could offer you a final product.
Mm-hmm.
I had a photo to sell to you, to give you.
Yes.
And if you were happy with that, then I felt complete for that moment. So that, so I understand.
Yeah.
I understand the feeling like you have to perform and offer someone something,
right?
Not just be who you are, and that's enough.
Correct.
So,
man, I felt like you were just like peekaboo into my brain, in my life. Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, definitely. If I perform, I'll get a result. If I don't perform, I get anger. I get punishment. I get this. I get that. It was like, and we just grew up like throw some dirt on it.
Right.
I grew up real like just shut up and do it. And I mean, that left no room for creativity. I mean, I'm listening to you speak about, being the editor at your school and the photographer and having all of that like art. Like I don't even really remember being allowed to have friends. And I mean, honestly, man, I just told somebody like 2 weeks ago, I can remember growing up in my room dreaming about what it would be like to have a friend. Like what it would be like to just go do something, or, you know, like, I don't know. I just wanted to do anything because I grew up with so much anger. And a lot of people, when I tell them that today, they're blown away by the way I carry myself. They're like, "You angry? I don't see that." And I'm like,
"Man, because you hide it well.
I hide it well.
If you show your anger, then you're not going to be loved."
Bingo. So, and there's no finished product,
right?
If I show anger,
right?
And so, yeah, I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with feeling anger, you know, and kind of sitting with that lately. I'm just now scratching that surface, though. This is a beginning story of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely beautiful, because I mean, it's not. I mean, we put up so many walls and so many different layers to protect ourselves from being hurt, basically.
Right.
And to give ourselves the best possible opportunity to be loved by as many people as possible. At least that's what I needed. Love. I needed appreciation. I needed all of those things in order to feel okay with who I was. And when I didn't feel okay with the way I was, what I realized was drugs and alcohol, they really helped that.
Oh, they definitely did.
And when something really helps me, I go full force.
Full throttle, baby.
I'm gonna get it. Man. I'm gonna get it.
Is it just me, or did drugs and alcohol literally fix everything?
Again, no, it did.
You know,
it did. It worked for a long time.
100%. It absolutely fixed everything until it didn't.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of that,
yeah.
let's get into it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, so all of that's my before story before I ever touched a drug or an alcohol. The most I'd done growing up was smoke a cigarette, and I used to think, like, if my family finds out, I'm going to die and I won't be on this planet. So my older sister, as she drank and, you know, did other things and started teeter-totting in her addiction, she would hold me smoking a cigarette over my head, which left me being scared to tell my parents about how scared I was for my big sister who was sneaking out of the house. Fast forward, Florida. So when we left the church, at about that time I was turning 18, my family was kind of crumbling apart. My dad and my stepmom were at the biggest odds. They were on the catalyst of a divorce, which they've been separated since then, but they're still not divorced. But
it's a slow process.
It was a slow process.
Yeah, for sure.
But I left Florida. And
how old were you when you left?
I was 18.
18.
And so I told my stepmom and my dad, my nanny that I was talking about earlier, she had just had surgery. And I told my family that I don't know how I pulled it off, because my family you can't get stuff by them. They're like on their stuff. But I was like, I'm just going to go help my nanny recover. Like, I just want to go be there for my nanny and, like, maybe make her some sweet tea or cook for her or something. I don't know what I said. And they were like, okay, we'll let you go stay. It was the summer. They were like, we'll let you go stay with your nanny. And so I packed, like, one bag, and I had a friend, shout out Michaela, who was actually my older sister's friend at first. I just became friends with her as I was growing up. She drove all the way to Florida from Grenada, Mississippi, and I didn't forget who the other girl was. Oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. They came to pick me up, and I just remember thinking, I'm terrified, because as chaotic and crazy as my family was in my home, it was security, and it was stability, and it was constant.
Comfortable.
And it was just comfortable, man. Like, I felt like, you know, I felt like the Little Mermaid, like, I just want legs, let me go see, and that's what I did. Like, I just packed a bag, and I left. And when I left, I remember the initial realization of, like, when my stepmom realized that I wasn't really coming back, the amount of anger that she had mixed with, you know, the amount of anger my dad had about it.
About you not coming back.
About me not coming back,
Okay.
yeah. Because they realized that I had lied. And a big thing in my family was just like, we don't lie.
Right.
Like, you speak the truth, you know. We speak the truth to each other, but we don't speak the truth to the public.
Right.
Love them, whatever. Love y'all. Getting a little too real. Let me pull it back. No,
no such thing.
No, you're right. So yeah, man, when I got to Grenada, I stayed in Grenada for like 2 weeks. And in that time, I started smoking weed. Like, ooh, you know, I felt so cool. It made me feel like I'm just one of the big kids, you know?
Yeah.
I still was terrified of, like, big drugs. Like, I always thought, like, I thought weed was like just such a baby drug, compared to what I'd heard my sister talk about. And so I started dibbling with that. I started drinking like, I think it was like Natty Light or some white trash thing like that. Which I'm a little trashy. So I grew up, whatever. But so, yeah, I was getting into it. But honestly, man, it was just like the beginning. I can look back, and I haven't thought about this in a long time until like kind of right now. I was scared. I still felt guilty to take those drinks in that time in my life. I felt guilty to smoke, that weed in that time in my life. I remember having conviction, and that's something that left.
Can you identify what it was that was driving that conviction? What exactly was it that your parents? What was that? What was the root of that?
So I think the root of it was I've grown up as uncomfortable in my skin, whatever, all that. I still believed in God. And I still wanted to be a good Christian, and I wanted to do everything right. And I just remember thinking, like, this isn't me praying. This isn't me fasting. This isn't me doing anything for God that I've been taught to do. And it was just kind of like, I can look back, and it was like me putting my shoes on, getting ready to run from God. And this is the one part of my story that
take your time.
I never wanted to run from God. I just thought I had to. I really did. I thought I had to go. I didn't think I was enough. I didn't think I was like, well, if I'm gay, because at this point I wasn't out. I had like a couple of moments of experimenting, but there was no like true, like, I'm not being true to my identity at that point. But I could feel all of it coming. I was just like, I know whatever's about to happen in my life, I can't do this with God. And I remember closing the door, spiritually. Because at one point I felt spiritually connected to a God. It just wasn't the God of my understanding, and it wasn't a God I could do business with.
Was it your parents' God?
It was my parents' God, and my nanny's God, and
sure.
Still to this day my family's God.
Sure.
Which we'll get into it, but has now somewhat merged into still being a version of my God. So it's like I can see it's not really much different now.
Right.
But yeah, I just hate remembering those beginning parts of my story where I was like, conviction was there, and I just closed the door on conviction.
Well, I mean, I totally understand how it can be difficult, but look at where you're at now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Had you not gone through all of those trials and tribulations and difficult times and the conviction and feeling like crap and not feeling it, you wouldn't be the person you are today.
Absolutely.
And the person you are today is uniquely qualified and equipped to help the next person.
Absolutely.
So everything that you've gone through in your past, the good, the bad, the evil, everything, now God can use that to help other people. So was it really a bad thing?
No.
I mean, obviously we would be silly to try to recreate the negative things that we've done. And I'm not saying that some of the things that I did were okay and good and pure in any way, shape, or form. But now that we're clean and sober and walking on this good path, we're now able to use those awful times to be able to help other people. So that's the way I try to look at it. I can be very quick to get into shame and what I've realized is that's completely counterproductive. That does nobody any good. So if I can come to terms with what I did in my past, and try to identify it as a way to help someone else, then all of a sudden the shame and guilt associated with those actions dissipates. And
Absolutely.
God is able to kind of take a step in and be like, okay, well, let's see how we can use this to help someone else.
Yeah, there's definitely a message in all the mess. I love that. And I think for me with getting a little emotional about that, I don't know if it's so much shame and regret, to be honest.
It's sad.
It's just sadness because it was like that purity, that youth, that just trying to do everything right by everybody, it was the first time I said no, like I'm about to do what I want to do. And so I can just remember thinking like, oh my God, I'm terrified. It was like probably the scariest time in my life, honestly, because I was leaving an identity behind and about to embark on trying to make an identity for myself, which insert drugs and alcohol found the identity for myself.
How fast did that like progress? Like, did you go straight from weed to like super hardcore in a matter of like a couple weeks when you shut that door? Like, what does that look like, the progression of it?
Thanks for asking. That's a great question. No, so it was not a quick overnight thing with me. I think that fear kept me safe for a little while, you know? Like, I felt like I just can't go too far. So I do believe that fear kept me safe from going full throttle. But, you know, as I went, so Grenada, at this point at 18, I'm staying with somebody in Grenada, my friend, 2 weeks. I go home to Kosciuszko to go see my family, and I'm there maybe like a week and a half, and I'm drinking, and my biological mother reaches out to me, and
plot twist.
Yeah, plot twist. And at this point, you know, so beautiful how God works. Just at that point in my life where she had never really been able to be a mother, she was actually sober, and she was trying to work this way of life. And so she shows up to me and she's like, son, I usually can give you, you know, I'm not used to having any type of say in what you do or what you don't do, but you're 18 right now. You don't have a driver's license. You don't have a vehicle. You don't have a GED. You don't have a diploma. Like, what are you doing? And I didn't know. So I said, okay, bet. Let's go see what this is about to look like. So I moved to Meridian, Mississippi with my biological mother. And in that part, my baby brother, Damon, actually lost both of his grandparents that he had been living with and stayed with, and she got him back as well.
Wow. Reunion.
So it was a reunion. So the home I grew up in, you know, it was almost like overnight that just became a blur. Like I literally shut the door and just never processed anything about it. And so now I'm in this life. So the chameleon comes in, and now I'm the big brother to my little brother, and I'm the son of my biological mother, not my stepmother.
Are you so excited?
At that point, I think I was nervous to think, what if she goes to jail again, or what if she drinks again? And then also I was so excited because I was able to smoke cigarettes in front of her, and she wasn't judging me. And then, you know, I remember having a boy come over. I'd had a boy come over to my mom's house, and I told one of my parents for the first time that, hey, I think I'm gay. And she was like, okay, so you're a freak like your mom. And I was like, that's cool, you know. That was so not the answer I would have got at the other home, you know.
Definitely not.
Which, I mean, kind of weird, but whatever. But, you know, I don't know. It didn't feel safe like that. It didn't feel comfort like that, but it felt like exciting, yes, because I felt like there was freedom that I never experienced. Yeah.
Freedom with a side of like safety.
Freedom with a side of safety, absolutely. And then to have my little brother who's always looked up to me, I was really excited about that because I knew he grew up sad every time I'd leave a visit and I'd go back to the sisters. And he was over there just like, I want to go with my brother, and he couldn't understand, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I go to Meridian, and that's where my mom is killing it in life, you know? She's like, come on, son, let's get it together. She takes me to go get, I think it was a driver's license first, or I had to get a permit first. I mean, I'm 18, getting a permit. I get a permit, and then I get a driver's license. I flunked that, like, the first time. I could not drive. And then I got it eventually, and then she was like, all right, let's go to GED school or GED classes at MCC. And so I took like one class at a time because towards the end in Florida, I was just homeschooling, but I never completed my work. So I never had a diploma or anything. So she got that rolling. And before I knew it, got my first job, which at this point I was smoking a lot of weed. And I remember my biological mom, the night before my drug test, she put me at the foot of her bed and she like made me practice fake peeing in a cup, like She helped me get ready to fake a drug test.
Yeah.
You know, I can't even see.
What's family for if not for that?
Well, thank God for family. Amen. Praise Dale and praise hell. It got great. I got the job. It was a lovely
Yay.
Office Max, you know. I hated that rubber band shirt. But yeah, so I got the job, and then now, before I know it, I'm in college. And so up to that point, it was just smoking weed a little bit and drinking a little bit of beer here and there, but like really scared to do anything. I get to college and I meet everybody on campus. I did not stay on campus. I live with my mom, but I met my best friend to this day, Raina Cook. Shout out to her. I love her so much. She's due in 8 days with her first child.
All right.
Aw.
Love her so much. But I met her and our 2 other friends, and we just became the clique. And so it was a lot of weed in the beginning for everybody. But, I mean, the first semester I killed it. But I think I took, like, stretching class or something. Like they all had a horrible GPA after the first semester, but I was, like, a 3 point. I had, like, Phi Theta Kappa. I got into Phi Theta Kappa
Wow.
because I took the bullshit easy.
Right.
Took the easy route
Yeah.
like I've always done in my life.
Right.
But wanted to flex like I done did something big, like I've always done in my life. And so that's when, so in that friend group, that's when it became more normal. We started drinking a little bit more. We started coming to Jackson, going to the gay club, which is where I got my first boyfriend, and you know, all of that trash. And so it progressed. But in that time, I was at Office Max until I got fired for embezzlement from my first job. I was stealing like Pringle sodas. I think I stole like a DVD holder or something too. And then like I was doing work with the products and charging half the price, but pocketing the cash and not ringing nothing but like $2 up in the system.
Attaboy.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was in there. And yeah, do not steal. We do not condone stealing.
No,
But yeah, that was my story. So I was just a thief, and I didn't even know that about myself, but I started thieving. And after I got fired from that job, I got hired as a manager in the express clothing world. And I was 19 years old. And then I got hired at K Jewelers. So I was a diamondologist, and I was a manager in express. And, you know, so here goes like another chameleon moment, another identity crisis, so to say, like, who am I? How am I going to impress these people? What am I going to do now? Like, I lied to get the job because I couldn't tell them I got fired from embezzlement. I mean, I just literally started out my career in life
Sure.
lying, fraudulent, insecure, uncomfortable, not knowing who I was, doing the best I could, but still falling short constant.
So how long did you keep those jobs? Like, or how long did this like pattern continue? You're like 2 weeks ago. No, I'm
No,
just
I
kidding.
was like, yeah. Let me call my sponsor really quick. Got to get honest. No, so I got fired from Office Max, and at this point, my mom had gone back to prison for a DUI. She had like built up DUIs, and you know, she had timed them. She had gotten them timed to where, like, you know, that third one would never hit on the right time. The 7-year mark would hit, and it would fall off. And
That a girl.
yeah, she was like, you know, she can get it done. But
We're crafty.
well, she was. But she went back to prison, and I used.
Did she relapse? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please interrupt me because I'm a little scatterbrained. I don't believe she had relapsed. I think she went in sober. I think she got sober with the intentions of knowing she was going
It just
to
caught
prison.
up.
It just caught up.
Yeah.
And so that is when what the fun, freedom, and still being safe out of fear kind of went away. Because now I really didn't have a mom. I really didn't have a dad. I really didn't have a something. And that's where I just leaned into my best friends and I stayed with them. But they didn't even really realize, like, they thought we were still in college having fun and just doing what we normally did. I can look back and see where that was where I started truly wanting to escape everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started progressing that, and I went from beer into liquor, like drinking vodka at the gay club on the weekends. And I just remember the first time I really got messed up. I remember like throwing up, and after I got through throwing up, I remember thinking to myself, this was so much fun. I cannot wait to do it again tomorrow. Like from the beginning. Yeah. Definitely an alcoholic way before I picked up my first drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, join the club.
Yeah, man. But yeah, so I think it just kind of turned into that. And so at Express, that's what actually brought me to Jackson. We closed the location down in Meridian, and I came to this one. Well, then we closed the one down here in Jackson at North Park Mall, and that's when I stepped out of retail for just a second. I thought I got a serving job at Bulldog Restaurant in Ridgewood. It was my first restaurant job. And I started working at Dillard's. And then I left Dillard's, got fired from Dillard's for being late all the time. Yeah, I mean, so that never changed.
I don't know. You were 30 minutes early today.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, you know, it works if you work it.
Valid point.
But no, so after getting into the restaurant world, that is when my addiction, like,
That'll kick it off.
oh, honey, baby, I feel like it was gasoline to a burning fire.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Okay, so were you in a restaurant?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
And
She's
that's
the
when-
queen of restaurants.
Yeah, I mean that's what that whole lifestyle is. You know, when you get off work, you don't go home. You know, you go out with the rest of the
Correct.
staff, and you know it's the certain bars where you go, and you get home at 3:30 in the morning, and that's like the norm.
Yeah.
And it just it was
Ugh.
that's
made
where
it out
really
alive.
we made it out alive barely.
It gets my heart bumping a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Bulldog.
Mm.
That's
I remember
where
that.
that's
I think
where
I
I
stole
got
a
it.
couple glasses from the
Oh, pint night, pint night on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
I grew to hate that when I later became the general manager of the Bulldog within a year and a half
Oh,
of my
okay.
first restaurant. Fraudulent. Okay, so like let's not just clap too much. Because those glasses, I remember getting the truck that we had to get once a year to keep the storage,
Mm.
and we had to rent a forklift to like get them off of the big 18-wheeler.
Uh-huh.
And I thought my gay ass was about to be a man, no juror, and drive that forklift. Girl, I almost shattered so much money worth of glasses. I knew in karate it wasn't going to work for me. But yeah, so that's where it kind of got going. And so as I climbed the ladder at that restaurant and I started hanging out a little later and I started going to the next spot a little differently, you know, man, it slowly became less and less about like controlling it for certain people and being this way in front of somebody and this way in front of somebody and like playing the stage character like it talks about in the book,
Mm-hmm.
which is my favorite part of the big book. That's how I kind of knew I was an alcoholic. I related so heavy to every word
Yes.
when I read that. But as I climbed the ladder and I finally made it to the top, I was at the highest point in my career, but yet I felt the lowest in my life that I'd ever felt.
Mm.
And so I could, like, I physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I had done crossed the line of alcoholism somewhere in there, and I no longer had control of alcohol and drugs. And at this point, I had stepped into the cocaine world, and I had stepped into the, accidentally did meth world.
I hate when that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hate when that one happened.
Yeah. I think that happened like 7,200 times.
Yeah, the accidentally.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I thought it was Coke.
Yeah.
Like, thinking that sounded way better.
Right.
So, yeah, the Bulldog is where it really progressed.
Hold on. There were people that did drugs in a restaurant environment.
I know. Shocking. I just, you know, I don't know. I try not to speak too much on it. I feel like still somehow, like, the cops are going to come get me for something that I've done, you know? Not really.
So we're into hard drugs now.
Yes.
You're in a career that you're sort of finding a whole new identity in.
Yeah.
What happens next?
You know, before what happens next, I've got to say, like, at that point of being like the boss or whatever, I'd started like, I don't want to sugarcoat it. It was embezzling money. I was borrowing from the master bank and then out of my paycheck, I was like 800 in the hole to the bank before I ever could receive a payday, and then paying a bill and then paying this, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What happens next is, after yet another failed straight relationship with a girl, Jesus. I really thought I was doing something. Poor thing. I mean, shout out to all the girls who just had to put up with me throughout my identity crisis. I love you. You're beautiful, and we love women. And I'm sorry. But I met a guy, and this is actually the guy that I got sober with, which was a completely unexpected turn in my life. When I met him, he was stable. He was kind. He was not afraid to speak his truth. And, like, you know, like, he had everything that I wanted and I never had. And, I mean, whatever the motive may be in the beginning, I wanted him in my life. And so I went after it. And we started dating. And I think we were like 3 months in, I had, due to chasing that cocaine addiction and everything, I'd owed yet again to the bank. But I stayed up all night on drugs one day during Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo of 2019 was one of the last all-nighters that I can remember. I'd stayed up all night. I was dating him, and the Mexican restaurant was right up the street on Fortification, whatever that little place is. What is that?
Cazuela or whatever. I
Oh,
love that
I have
place.
some memories from there.
Jesus. I was on the patio on Cinco de Mayo, and I didn't stay on the patio all day after staying up all night. And my assistant general manager, who, thank God for her, I love her so much. I'm so grateful for every person in my story. You know, like the people who held me accountable, the people who, all of it. But she got off of a shitty shift that she had to go in and save because the general manager didn't show up to work. His phone, they couldn't get him on the phone because little did they know he wasn't paying his phone bill because he couldn't afford it.
Right.
You know, I didn't have insurance on my car. I didn't have a tag on my car. You know, like literally not existing, not living, not thriving by no means. But she shows up to that place not knowing I was there, just to drink the day away herself. Like, she's not one of us. And she was like, just letting you know, I called Valerie. And Val is a dear friend of mine, big part of just somebody who's been an amazing friend and role model in my life. When I didn't really see hope or the light, she was just like, you don't always have to be working on something. Like, you don't have to perform for me. But she was my boss, and she was the RM of the restaurant that I managed. And so she was coming from Louisiana, and she said, she's coming tomorrow, and I don't think it's going to be good for you. And so I just knew, like, I was like, okay, all of this is about to be over. It was kind of like that time I left Florida. I was thinking, like, I don't know what's coming next, but I know I'm about to have to close the door and just flush this away.
All this sounds pretty exhausting.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
like, literally talking about it still to this day, I mean, my heart rate, like, just bumps, because it was always like, dude, I was just never where I was.
Yeah.
I was just never where I was. I was either morbidly reflecting or future tripping or
Right.
always in fear or anger, or, you know, or I'm a victim because my life's so shitty and I'm so good to all these people and they're not treating me right.
Yeah.
And do they know how fucking special I am, you
Right.
know? Little did I know, I didn't know how special I was or how special I wasn't. But she showed up and I had a conversation and she was like, I'm just going to let you know, I could fire you right now. Oh, and in this time, I just met my boyfriend. I went to him and told him, like, I hadn't done payroll that day. It was a Monday. I had not done payroll so that I could pay back the bank. She was on the way. And I was like, I need to borrow like $300. I just met this guy. He let me borrow $300. And then I would cash my check, and after I got fired or gracefully let go of, and paid him back. And we started dating. And that's how it was for the next like 3 months. I went into completely like, now I'm not responsible for nothing, nobody. Definitely did not respect him, did not respect the relationship, did not respect myself or anything. I was just literally on the biggest like FU mode that I had ever been in my addiction. And anybody around Jackson, which is a lot of people, know what that version of Alex Moore was like. I thought we were having fun. I was in a lot of pain, and I was just exhausted. I mean, it was all over me, and I didn't see it. I had no hope, no light. I've never really been one to struggle with suicidal. Can I say that on here?
Yeah.
Okay. I try to be careful with topics, you know, because it can be very timid. The world's hypersensitive, and I'm like,
very sensitive.
I love you all, but like I'm
Yeah.
not, you know.
No, but you're good.
So yeah, I never really struggled with that, but I will say that is the closest I can relate to somebody with suicidal thoughts or depression or anything else like that. Real dark struggles. Mine wasn't there quite so much, but I probably wasn't far away from that.
Right.
If I would have kept going. But I just remember him telling me one day we had gotten into yet another cocaine raged fight. He had lost a bag of my cocaine, and
That's a deal breaker.
oh honey, I turned
Sorry.
into I turned into the Hulk. Like he had to lock himself in my car, and I was beating the shit out of my car, like dents in my car. Definitely not a life coach in that moment. You know, and that's what he dealt with. And then I just remember him telling me one night, he was like, this is not so much like so that you can make my life easier. I'm just letting you know, like, I'll probably leave you. Like, I'm probably going to leave you. I just want to know that you're okay because you really are a good person and I see what you're capable of, but I can't put up with this. And so, you know, I grew up in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous due to my biological mother when I visited her. Like, hey, I'm Alex. I'm the son of an alcoholic. That's what I used to say in AA meetings at like 7 years old, 8 years old. And I remembered from a little bout with one of my ex-girlfriends who said I was an alcoholic, and I went to AA for a week to prove to her that I was not an alcoholic. That relationship didn't work for more than one reason. But I remembered Yana. I remembered the yellow building. And I'd had a night out at George Street. Do y'all know about old George Street Old Tavern?
Oh, yeah.
We love them, which I really do. Shannon, love Shannon, the owner of Tavern. But I'd jumped off of the DJ booth and thought that there was a crowd, just waiting for my return. I thought I was fucking a rock star. Yeah. And I went through the floor, and this little spot right here has never really truly healed up, which is a cool reminder for me to remember my last night of getting wacky, completely wacky. I think God does that on purpose. But I remember waking up the next day hungover, had a meeting with my boss at Saltine. I'd left Bulldog. I'm not sober yet, but I'm serving tables at Saltine. I went and got a server job. I wanted no titles, no responsibility. I was just about to figure out who I was. Take it easy, a.k.a. still get fucked up and not have any responsibility.
Right.
And then one day I was supposed to get off work after that meeting, and I remember him setting me down. So I just had this conversation with this guy that I was interested in, and he said, we're not going to stay together. I'm not going to be able to put up with this. And then I go to my work, and my boss is like, Alex, you are one of the best people I've ever met in my life. The fucking customers love you. He didn't say it quite like that. But he was like, you are a shit worker. I do not know how you were the general manager of a restaurant. Those were some of his exact words. And so it just, for the first time in my life, I felt seen. I felt found out. I felt like everybody was on to me, and I couldn't hide it anymore.
Right.
And that's where I was like, okay, I think I need some help. But I didn't tell him I needed help. I didn't tell my boyfriend that I needed help. I didn't tell anybody I needed help. I made plans for happy hour that night. And when I pulled out of the little gate to go left to happy hour and meet some of my old friends, it was I drove my car, but I still don't remember consciously driving my car right. I had every intention to go left. But before I knew it, I was right by Pig and Pint, turning right. And then I turned left, and I turned left. And before I knew it, I was in the back parking lot of Yana, and I just broke down.
I get
broke
chills.
down. And that was the first example of God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I sat in my car. I was so early. For that meeting. I don't think many people were there, but I'm not going to break her anonymity. But a lady that has become one of my closest, trusted friends along this journey, love her to death. She sat out back and met me on the porch and lit up a cigarette with me and told me, come on in. And she helped me get a cup of coffee. And she talked to me about her ex-husband and kind of took my mind off for just a split second of me. And, you know, we sat there and talked, and I talked to her for probably about an hour and a half before that meeting. And then I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous for the first time. And I said, hey, I'm Alex, and I'm an alcoholic for the first time. And it was no longer I'm the son, I'm the nephew, I'm the cousin, I'm the this. It was like game on. It was me.
What I think is interesting real quick, and I have to say this, is when you said that, you exhaled.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's what our first meeting is like.
Mm-hmm.
We can exhale for the first time.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting that that happened as you said that just now.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what happens is we can breathe.
We can finally breathe.
We can exhale. The journey is starting now.
Yeah, man. And so that is, I think that day was July 19th. And I don't think, I know.
I'm pretty clear.
Let me
about
go
this.
ahead and be clear. I know it was July 19th, 2019, the year before a pandemic.
Yeah.
And I just was like, okay, I have no idea what's going on. You know, I really didn't. But that exhale was enough to let me know that I wanted to go back again. And I didn't say anything to my boyfriend at the time. I didn't say anything to any friends at the time. But, like, I literally was known as the party animal around town. So, like, you know, the weekend was coming and people were trying to get them plans on. And, like, so my phone was, I just remember it blowing up like it used to. And, like, the people I'd been entertaining and performing for and just all of the masses still needing something. And I knew that, like, I was not going to be able to do that because I was about to do this, whatever this is. And so I wanted to make sure it was for me, though, because I've been known to say I'm going to quit drinking for people because I tried to manage it for a long time, switching the wine, doing the whole thing, doing the little dancey dance.
Sure.
I couldn't. I knew I was an alcoholic when I sat down. I knew. There was no more lying to myself.
Do you think that you didn't tell people, though, because, like, almost like your disease was telling you, but if I change my mind, I don't want everyone to,
oh, my
like,
God, absolutely.
you know what I mean? Like, I had a hard time saying anything to anybody because it was like, I was like, maybe what if it's like not that bad? Then all of a sudden I'm this person who has a problem. So now I'm not going to be able to have fun with these people anymore because they're going to think, oh, I have a problem.
Absolutely.
So you just keep it to yourself.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point because that's exactly what it was. I knew I was an alcoholic. I knew I was in the right place. I knew I wanted to go back that second day, but I still, in my mind, was about to do it like I've done everything else and do it like a trend and post it on Facebook with hashtag 30 days and be like, I'm motherfucking sober, you know, and like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, because everything has always been about look at me. But somehow, I mean, y'all know how it happens. No matter what your motive is that drives you into the rooms, if you come in and you do what it is that they suggest you do and do what it is that we do, you'll get what we have. And that's exactly how it happened. So I didn't have the intentions to stay forever or stay sober forever. I just wanted my life to get better and I wanted to feel okay.
Was it difficult for you to go from that first meeting to the next meeting you went to and stay sober in between the two of those?
Yes-ish. Because I wasn't telling my boyfriend. I didn't come home and tell him that night. But he wanted to go out and I didn't want to go out. And that was the first time he was like, what's up? But I think he still went out. But I remember coming home from my first AA meeting to a partner who drank. That was fucking hard.
Yeah.
And I've never owned that like that. I've never told many people about it. But it was very hard. And
How
it was
did you
strict
get through that?
willpower.
Willpower, yeah.
Complete willpower. And complete willpower because watch what I'm about to be able to say I did.
Right.
It was not because, like, whatever else. It was just like, I can't wait for this story, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm the actor.
This is going to make me look so good.
I'm going to look so good in 30 days. Like, maybe they'll actually invite me to the party next time because I'm not a shit show anymore.
Right, right.
So our goal here is 30 days. Like,
yeah.
Just kind of like subconsciously.
Just subconsciously.
Okay.
30 days. But in those 30 days, probably like 2 weeks, actually, I heard the word sponsor. Sponsor. And then I heard book. You know, what I heard was preacher, and I heard Bible. And I was like, fuck that. You know, and then I looked up on the wall. around like step 3, I'm like, oh God,
Right.
Step 4, I'm like, what are you talking about in inventory? I've done an inventory of a restaurant. I'm not about to do an inventory on me,
right.
baby. And I was already figuring out how I was going to get the right sponsor, do these cute little steps, mark the mark. But I remember in one of my meetings, somebody had said, get a sponsor that scares you a little bit. Yeah, and I don't know if that's the truth or if that's the right way. I'm just saying, like, I remember that's what stood out to me the most. And so I listened to everybody in one of those meetings, and I think I was like 2 weeks in, and I heard this one guy who was like, just no sugarcoat, and it felt familiar the way I grew up in my home, like just somebody who just shoots it straight and doesn't care about emotions. Like I remember him saying something like, fuck your feelings, you'll get drunk.
Right.
And I was just like, oh my God. Like I'm terrified. But I was like, I think I want him to be my sponsor. So I like walked up to him outside on the bricks of Yana, and I was like, it's so embarrassing, but it is what it is. He was like sitting there talking because he had been sober, I think now at that point, 4.5. He'd been sober around the time I'm sober now, like 4.5 years, maybe 5 years, something like that. Maybe it was 5. But he was sitting out there talking to people because he doesn't just talk in the meetings. Like he's out there talking to the newcomer at the end of the meeting on the pavement. And that's how I've grown up in AA. You
like
talk to
that.
that newcomer. You don't just say something in a meeting and just let them walk to their car. No, hey man, what's up? How's your day going? What you want to talk about? Like just distract them the way that lady did for me, the way my sponsor did.
I'm so glad you said that.
Absolutely. And so I saw him over there, and I was like so scared. Like I have this thing with men. I'm at this point, I've done lived a gay life. Like I don't feel like I can truly be who I am. I'm not comfortable in my skin. I think I'm going to hell still for being gay. And what will this man think of me if I ask him, a gay guy, to sponsor me? Is the way I was thinking. And I walked up and I was like, hey man. He was like, hey, what up, cool? And I was like, do you think that, like, I mean, I'm gay, but do you think you can sponsor me? And he was like, I don't give a shit who you fuck. Yeah, you ready to get sober? And I was like, I think, yeah, let's go. And he said, all right, well, before I say yes, he said, call me every day for like 30 days. So there went my 30-day plan, and it kind of matched up with some accountability.
Which is key.
Which is so cool. Like, I didn't know what I was doing in that moment. It felt so uncomfortable. It felt so scary. It felt so weird to have a healthy man in my life being healthy to me, and being kind to me and loving to me and just okay with his emotions to me.
Not trying to get something
Not
out of
trying
you.
to abuse, like, or, you know what I mean? Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Like, there was no... Because, I mean, at that point in my life, man, I was very sick with, like, I think it blocked me actually from making genuine friendships with guys, because I always had this, like, inner motive of, like, this, like, deceiving, I'm going to see if I can turn them out. I'm going to see what I can do. I'm going to see what I can get. And, I mean, I didn't know that's what I was doing, but that's exactly what I was doing. So I always felt fear around men, and I always felt like I compared myself to other men. And, egomaniac with inferiority complex, here I am. But with him, it became a little different. Like, those phone calls started off with, like, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, did you go to work? Did you make it on time? You know what I'm saying? Like, did you hit your knees and pray? Did you read your meditation today? And it was just, like, little questions. But that's exactly what I needed. I needed somebody who could see through my bullshit, and I didn't know he could see through my bullshit until around like day 31 maybe, or day 33, where he told me that I was full of shit, and I needed to stop trying to fake it and just sit down, because I have no idea what it takes to stay sober or get sober. And that's the kind of sponsor I had, and that's exactly what kind of sponsor I needed. And a lot of people, now this is what I've learned too, now that I came and I stayed. A lot of people get sober with different sponsors who sponsor differently, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, for a long time, I didn't realize that was okay. I thought it was either rigid, telling the truth, brutal honesty out of the big book, or nothing. But, now that I'm a sponsor and I'm working with other men, that's not who I am in my soul. Like, I'm not that sponsor. Now, thank God I was shown the truth and I was taught the truth, because I'm always to share the truth, which is something I struggle with, because I'm still that people pleaser. I'm still
Right.
that I want to make a good impression because I don't want you to be upset at me or, love me, love me, love me.
Right.
Somebody love me. Exhausting.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking exhausting. So yeah, he that was like my first 2 months, and then he was like, okay, he gave me a worksheet for my step 1, and then it was like, how do you think you're powerless? How was your life? I mean, just very basic, generic, getting me to work on something.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time, I done told my boyfriend, and I'm telling him, like, I'm sober and I'm going to these meetings now instead of going to the club with him, and we had been together 6 months up until that point before I got sober. And in that moment, I think we started to grow apart because I didn't know how to chase the crowd anymore with him or be the monkey clapping on stage at the circus, like, clap for me. And it was like, I'm trying to figure out who the hell I am finally. Yeah. And so we were together. I stayed sober with my sponsor. I worked the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps of recovery. Around that 4th step, let me not go right to the breakup. I'm really quick to bring that up. Around the 4th step is where I realized this was serious and that I didn't know what sobriety meant, and I didn't know if I was going to do this forever. But I was like, okay, I've built this relationship with at least one guy, one dude that I feel like I can trust, and it was my sponsor. I use that phone every day. I called him every day. I mean, I call him and be like, man, I didn't brush my teeth today. Am I going to drink? And he'd be like, no, just brush your teeth tonight. Like,
Right.
I mean, he just was there. And so when we got to step 4, I was thinking like,
I
okay,
have a quick question.
bring it, please.
Before you get to step 4, how
Okay.
did you reconcile with your struggles with step 3?
Okay, so step 3 was pretty much me realizing like the group could be me understanding like a power greater than myself that I couldn't, and becoming willing to like go into step 4.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't truly able to take step 3 in the beginning, like wholeheartedly,
Mm-hmm.
until after I'd kind of worked through step 4 and step 5 and got into step 6 and 7.
See, I'm so glad you said that because for me, I knew like what step, and I didn't have any struggles with like the God thing or anything like that, but I had trouble really getting a grasp of like what step 3 really was.
Right.
And it just came later.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like I kept doing what they said to do.
Yes.
And that part just came.
It just came.
And so I feel like a lot of times people struggle so hard with step 2 and 3 and they think they can't move on to 4 or 5, 6. But like it just comes.
It just comes, and it's trusting the process. And thank God for good sponsorship,
Right.
who kind of steers you and says like, right now, step 1 and 2 and 3, you'll always do that for the rest of your life.
Yep.
But like, we're going to do it the best you can right now.
Mm-hmm.
But step 4 is where we're getting into action.
Yes.
And so like, if you're willing, you're honest, open-minded, and willing, we can go into step 4. Mm-hmm. But he made me learn the 3rd step prayer.
Yes.
And he's like, you better learn it or I'm not going to be your sponsor. That's what he told me. And I was like, oh my God. So I memorized it, and y'all, right before we started all this, before we went live and I had my eyes closed, that was the prayer I was saying.
I say it a lot.
I
say it every morning.
Dude, literally almost every morning, or anytime I'm disturbed, or anytime I'm scared, or anytime I'm angry, anytime I'm anything, that prayer helps.
Say it real quick, just in case someone's listening and they have no idea.
Absolutely. Watch me fumble it.
I know.
No, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, so I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, so that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. Of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life, may I do thy will always. Amen.
Amen. Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, chills, like that's the meat of my recovery. And when I didn't really fully grasp step 3, and I was getting ready for step 4, and I was writing all this shit down, I remember after learning that, just that was how I developed a prayer life after running from God for so long, was saying that prayer over and over and over and over again.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
God met me there. Yeah, he met me in me faking it. And I tell a lot of people that, and I do believe it. Like you said, like a lot of people like, I can't go do this because I don't really know if I'm really ready or whatever. I'm like, God will meet you in this journey if you just try.
Yeah.
He meets you in this journey, and you're not going to do anything perfectly except for step one.
Right.
Like step one, like we got to know we're an alcoholic or none of this is going to really work.
Right.
But you know, all the other stuff, you're going to get better at. It's practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like just be ready, suit up, show up. Just show up.
Just do it.
Let's just fucking do it like Nike. I hope I can say that. without you.
Sure.
But yeah, so step 4, I put all of my resentments and my fears and my sexual harms, which the sexual harm, sharing that with a straight man was very scary. But it was just like whatever, because I was told the thing you leave off of your 4th step and your 5th step is the thing that you might get drunk over.
Yeah, he doesn't give a damn.
He didn't.
He's more concerned with you being thorough and honest. Like,
Correct.
I guarantee you, he's heard everything that you probably said
Yeah.
numerous times.
Or done it
Yeah,
himself,
exactly.
which I found out he had, and it was cool. Like, not everything. But yeah, and that was the first time that I actually truly let another man into my life.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got healthier and as I kept coming back and my people, places, and things changed, which was vital for me.
Yeah.
I mean, now let me not forget this, and I think it is important for me to share. I was going out to the clubs in early recovery, trying to still relive those people, places, and things. I was going
You're
to
playing with fire.
I was playing
Yeah.
with fire. I was. Now, you know, I wasn't being honest with my sponsor about it. You know, I was so scared of like, what is he going to think if I'm doing
Right.
the wrong thing?
Well, he's probably going to tell me not to do it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I was in New Orleans with my boyfriend, like chugging Red Bull on Bourbon Street at 3 a.m., sober 2 months. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Do not suggest at all. And something my sponsor told me, and it's something I'll tell you, and I hope I don't get canceled over this, but if you're going to be stupid, you better be tough. That's what he told me. Because I was really silly. I was
Yeah.
really silly. I like that word better. If you're going to be silly, be tough. Because I was very silly for thinking that I could still go live that life without the crutch of drugs and alcohol. Because it
Right.
was miserable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I didn't even enjoy myself.
I bet.
But thank God, somehow, God doing for me what my silly tail could not do for myself.
Yup.
Like, I was able to stay sober because I just knew I didn't want to go back to that insanity.
Right.
Like, I didn't even know what the word insanity was, but I knew that's what it felt like. But yeah, so I wouldn't suggest that to anyone, but I do forget to bring that up in my story, and that is a big part of my story because it was the complete opposite of what they tell you to do, and I did it. And just because I stayed sober, or you know, I'm here today, not everybody who plays with fire like that makes it out alive.
Right.
So how did you reconcile with God? You mentioned early in the podcast that, you know, there was the whole being gay and God thing for a lot of people that doesn't mesh very well.
Right.
And that keeps a lot of folks from being able to get sober and stay sober as a result of them thinking that, well, I'm going to hell because of this or whatever. So how did you reconcile, and how did you come to your understanding of God as a loving and caring person, and somebody that's not, you know, well, you're going to hell because you were born this way?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what did that look like for you?
I mean, it was in that 4th and 5th step, man. It was having a loving sponsor who shared his darkness with me, and shared, just like at the beginning you said, you know, it's really nothing to regret because we get to use it to help another. That's exactly what that man did for me at like such an important time, because I believe I was looking for excuses to go back out in the beginning. Probably subconsciously we all do, because that's what's normal, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just waiting for somebody to mess up so that I could be the victim again and go do what I thought I really wanted to do.
Right.
Even though I had worked step 1, 2, and 3 on paper and like went through the motions. But when I put on that piece of paper that I fear going to hell for being gay, and I shared that with another man, and he helped me find my part, which I was thinking was going to be this big, dramatic, you know, like I've done something wrong. But it was simply, I was just being who I was. That was my part. And God loved me and God wants me to be loved, and God wants me to be myself. And there's been so many people who've ran away from God based off of people using their opinions and religion about things and sin and things they deem as sin and things they struggle with themselves, but they're not brave enough to talk about. But right now in this moment, I'm going to extend the love of God to you and say that he loves you and you're not going to hell. And girl, I was sitting there like boo-hooing. Boo-hooing. It was it was like what I craved from my father.
Right.
You know, like, although when I came out, my dad kind of gave me that, like, you're my firstborn, I love you no matter what. There was still, like, in his eyes, like, after being the martial artist or the baseball or the football or whatever else I played to do, I could tell, like, the letdown. But with my sponsor, there was, like, a genuine, you're okay. You're not going to hell. God don't make mistakes.
And let's move forward.
And let's move forward. Like, who are you besides gay?
Right.
And that's what I didn't know. You know, I clinged on to being gay because that's the only thing that made me feel different. Because I had no identity, and I felt invisible growing up. I really did. But when I found that in college, and I started experimenting, and you know, whatever, I just remember feeling so like just with it. You know, mixed with drugs and alcohol, I felt like, oh my God, who's that? Yeah, it don't matter. But yeah, so he extended that grace, and after that, I would love to say that I just automatically got comfortable in my skin, and you know, the rest was history, and I just rode out with Jesus in a Cadillac. But that's just not how it happened. It more so looked like I felt that relief in that conversation, and I knew he meant business when he said what he said, but it was something I had to go seeking for and start developing that relationship. Now, like the walls were down, because that like grace that was extended to me somehow made me feel like I can truly start seeking a power greater than myself. That's when I started practicing prayer. I just started talking to God. And like I said, it started out with a 3rd step prayer, but then it turned into me praying for my sponsor. I would pray for my sponsor because he told me he prayed for me, and I just thought that's what I should do, you know? And then it was, of course, the resentments that I found out about. Because he told me anytime I'd call him angry or mad at somebody, he'd be like, go home and pray for him for 2 weeks and tell me about it afterwards. And I'm like, okay, bet, I'll show you. So I prayed those first couple nights like, Lord, please let them know that they have done messed up, and I will mess them up if they cross my path again, Jesus. And then it turned into genuinely like, Lord, let me find my part. Let me not make this about me. Lord, let me see where they are sick like a patient dying of cancer. Like, let me see of how I can look at this differently so I can find some peace in it.
Right.
And stop being a fucking victim.
Yeah. Well, the most important thing is finding our parts.
Absolutely.
In those things, because resentment, to me, it will absolutely destroy me.
Absolutely.
And I have a part in every resentment.
Every one of them.
Every single one of my resentments.
Yeah.
So today, I mean, by the grace of God, my first thought now when I get angry or resentful is not to lash out at that person. This has taken practice, and
right.
It's still something that I work on every day. But my first thought today is not, you know, how dare that person do that? I can't believe that. My first thought today is, okay, well, I'm pissed off. What's my part?
Right.
That's the first thing I think about today.
Because we want peace.
Right.
We don't want to be right. Do you want to be happy and right?
Right.
I mean, do you want to be right, or do you want to be at peace and be happy?
Yeah.
I choose peace and happy.
I mean, there are times when I want chaos.
Right.
That there just is, and I will always be that way.
True.
But today I don't act out on those feelings. I recognize them, internalize them, appreciate them as information, and move on.
Absolutely.
That's it. Do you have any questions? We're getting pretty close to the end of the. We've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh!
I know time has flown.
By.
We're getting wild.
I know, it's been absolutely fantastic. Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
Oh my God, so much. We need to do like a part 2. Okay. So I love what you're talking about sponsorship.
Yeah.
I think it's so important. First time I tried to get sober, I skipped that whole part because I was like, not for me.
Right.
And, you know, lessons learned. So I'm glad you said that. What are a couple of things that you struggled with the most in early sobriety? And what are a couple of things you learned that helped you stay sober?
I struggled definitely with the prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I faked it a lot. I faked it a lot. I did it out of fear.
But you still did it.
But I still did it.
Right.
Because I was taught it doesn't matter how I feel about what I'm doing. It just matters that I'm doing it.
Exactly.
And feelings are not facts. And I really struggled with that. But now in my life, like, I'm so grateful that I know that because my feelings
I wish
are
I
not
would have
facts.
learned that like 25 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Like that would have been amazing.
Right. And I still struggle. Like he said, I mean, you give me on the wrong day and I will completely show you what kind of alcoholic I am.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I don't have to live like that anymore. So yeah, I'd say prayer, feelings are not facts. Taking the mask off that I had been wearing for so long and just trying to be my authentic self, that was very difficult. And I kept those walls up in that mask with the community in AA for a very long time. And it became, oh, he's so positive. Oh, he's so light. And here I go again, trying to impress a group of alcoholics and addicts who are trying to help save my life. And then now I'm just now to where I'm like, I don't have to perform. I left that relationship that I was in. I'm single almost now a year. I have a business that reminds people not to put on a show. You get to write the rules. You get to throw the rule book out.
Which I want to talk
start
about.
over. Yeah.
Like, how did Alex Christian Moore, this person who was a complete fake,
Right.
a thief,
Yes.
just all over the place, couldn't show up on time for anything. Like, how did that person all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, become a person who says, you know what, I'm going to help other people with their lives? Like,
Absolutely.
when did that happen, and what's that been like?
When I realized that is a great question. Thank you for asking. That's going to help me like wrap all of that up. Like, getting sober was probably the most hardest thing that I've ever done in my life because it required, and y'all know it requires truly like all of it.
Yeah.
All in or all out. And if so it was hard, but I got sober. I got the sponsor. I kept coming back to meetings. I started working the steps. I stayed open-minded. I started developing a relationship with a creator that I can do business with, that I began to not have to fake it in prayer. And then I was enjoying time in prayer. I was looking forward to meditating. I was looking forward to those morning routines. And then I got myself into routine habits and like micro habits. And so sobriety just kind of like turned into this lifestyle that I didn't know existed. And I realized how good it made me feel. And I was thinking, I wish everybody had this program. I wish everybody had this way of life. And I was thinking when the pandemic happened, early recovery, got laid off, I had to fill my time with something. So in between playing Call of Duty, and drinking Dr. Pepper and gaining 40 pounds in new sobriety, I started researching, like, what can you do to be yourself, help people, and be positive and make money? And the first time on Google, it popped up life coach, and I'd never heard that word before or seen that. But as soon as I saw that word, I felt it in my spirit, and I was like, that's exactly what I want to be. And so I looked up, New Skills Academy, and I got certified to be a life coach. And but right after that, it's like sobriety's taught me to get into action. Just do the next right thing. Even when you don't know what it is, ask for help, but like do something. Because if you're not going forward, you're going backwards. And so I just did that with like the life coaching business. And then I got my LLC, and then I got somebody to outsource my website. And before I knew it, I was making t-shirts. And then it was my launch day, I think it was January 2021. Like going into that was the launch day. And then January 22, I started my podcast. And then, this year I've been doing coaching, podcasting, a wellness company with Isogenics based out of Arizona. And then, the general manager of a restaurant and sponsoring men and giving away what's so freely given to me. Because if it wasn't for me getting sober with that man that scared the shit out of me almost 4 years ago, I would not be here right now wanting to live and wanting to help others live. I just wouldn't. And I know that I'm not confused about alcoholism. I'm not confused about what I am or who I am. And before I'm any title, I'm Alex, and I'm an alcoholic. Whew. And I will always remember that.
Go on now.
I know.
So, I am a legacy of a lot of preachers, brother. So I told him, I was like, I think I'll be a missionary one day. And I guess I am, just, in a different way.
Right.
So yeah, that's how that happened.
This is amazing.
That is awesome.
Y'all are amazing.
Oh, stop it.
No, for real, literally, like, I'm not used to being around people who are just so, I am, but I'm not used to me taking off the mask and me truly connecting and not being in those slots and those titles. And just like, I'm just here and y'all are being open and vulnerable, which reminds me that it's safe to be open and vulnerable. So thank y'all for that.
Yeah,
That's one.
absolutely.
One more quick question.
Get it.
So sorry. So with the life coach business and all this kind of stuff, do you struggle with having this mask on? That's I've got it all together. I have to have it all together because I gotta let you know, like you can too. Like
Absolutely.
what do you do with that?
Well, for a long time, I just do it anyways and don't think about how I feel.
Okay.
I've gotten into therapy after the breakup, and so that'll put you. That's like getting
Huge.
sober. You're just like, whoa, okay. I thought I was really killing it in life. And so at this moment, right now, and that's what I was talking to my best friend about last night. You know, I think as much as far as I've come, I've still got so far to go, and I don't like owning that, and I don't like admitting that out loud. And you know, it's very easy for me to want everybody to think like he's got it together. He's the life coach, but you know, I haven't been to the gym in 3 months. I haven't been eating healthy and meal prepping in 3 months. I've had maybe 3 clients this year. I mean, I've really pulled all the way back from at the speed and the rate I was doing things because I know it's just like every other time in my life. It's time to close a door and open a new one. And this time it's just going to be authentic and personal. Like this chapter is really personal to me. And it's not so much about who I can help always and what they think of me or what I can do for them or anything like that. It's like, how am I showing up for myself silently behind the scenes of all of these things that I do?
Yeah.
And I found out I've kind of failed at that lately. And so I'm just trying to get okay with that and sit with loneliness and sit with my body changing and gaining weight and, you know, all of the things that people struggle with and I have coached people on and through. And I'm just trying not to be the teacher right now and just be the student again. So I'm not taking clients right now. And I have 1 episode left of my 3rd season of Get More podcast. And I'm also going to take a break from that. And it'll just be restaurant management and part-time residual income with the other. And then it'll be sponsoring men.
I love that. And I love that you recognize, you know, this isn't right for this season. I need a more personal chapter. Like, I love that you're able to shift and be okay with the shift, work through the shift, like, and you're still sober.
Absolutely.
And when you talk, I just sit there and think like, God, he's going to help so many men. He's going to help so many men. And it wasn't necessarily with this, you're going to help so many alcoholic and drug addict men. And I just see that as your purpose.
I pray.
And
I pray.
I just am so excited for everyone you come in contact with.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I share that sentiment.
I know, like I'm like, oh my God, don't make me cry again. Like I've almost cried like 3 times here. I'm a grateful alcoholic today.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just a good day to be sober
It
today.
is.
And even through like times where I don't feel my best and I'm faking it still because I can be in those seasons and all of this, like I want to be sober more than I want anything else in my life. Because without it, I know that I'm nothing. And I'm going to turn right back to being that scared little boy that I once was. And I'm trying to be the man God wants me to be one day at a time.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Dude, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean, that's where we're ending.
Yeah, perfect. I know. I think we're all on the same wavelength.
That's awesome. All right, cool, man. Alex, so hold on. Before we go, how
Okay.
do people get in touch with you? I know
Okay.
you're not taking clients, but if somebody wants to reach out and talk with you, how can they get in touch with you? Website, phone number if you want to give that, email address, all of that.
Lord Jesus. Okay, so you can find me.
Or even like what meeting at Yana? What day,
so
time?
at meetings, so I chair meetings at 5:15 every other Tuesday. So this coming up Tuesday, and then every other Tuesday from that, 5:15. But I'm always at the 5:15 meeting. Like that's my home group. Traditions, love. And sometimes you'll catch me double dipping if I'm getting real cray.
Sure.
But then you can find me on Facebook, Alex Christian Moore. You can find my business page, Get More, GETMOORE, because my last name is Moore, so Get More Out of
Love
Life.
it.
Love it. And then you can find me on Instagram at _more_post. You can find me on TikTok the same way, the_more_post. And then if you ever want to book a consultation or just talk or reach out to me, you can go to www.letsgetmore.com and reach out to me through that. That's my website.
Awesome. And shout out to Sarah Sellers. She said, love Alex.
Oh,
there you
love
go.
Sarah.
And Drew, we see your comments. Thanks, brother. I hope y'all had fun today. All right, Brynn Knox, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Brad.
And you knocked it out of the park.
You were killing it with the
Yeah,
questions.
absolutely. You better watch out, Drew. All right, cool. Thank you so much,
Thank
Alex.
you.
And we'll see you. Well, we're not having an episode next week because we're going. We've got Easter, but we'll see you the week after that. All right. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on the flip side.
Thanks.
Bye.
Do we take our mics off? Hold on.